Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Commerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon FBA, private label, and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy, and today we bring a very special guest. Her name is Lesley Hensell, and she's the co-founder of Riverbend Consulting, which they are experts when it comes to everything that has to do with your Amazon account health. So, account suspension, agent suspensions, the whole thing that we all always afraid when waking up and seeing our email and seeing a notification of getting suspended, like Riverbend is there to support you. And that's why I wanted to bring today Lesley to talk around this topic, because I know every single day there are new policies, new changes, things that you need to be aware as a seller. And I'm pretty sure she's gonna drop a lot of gold nuggets, as they call them, to make sure your account is always in line. So, Lesley, it's a pleasure to have you here today. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. And I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I mean, to be honest, I love what you guys do in the space. Been following it for a while now, the content, the webinars, everything. I feel like what you guys bring to the space in terms of providing guidance around the Amazon account health issue is very important, because I mean, we work with many clients that, when something happens to their account or something goes down, like I feel people nowadays, they are so lost. They don't know how to really do a plan of action, or how to really getting track of basically reactivate their business, and seeing that you guys are helping with those issues is awesome. So thank you for doing that. Now, before we jump into all the technicalities and the complexity of everything that's to do with, account suspensions and so on, I would like to start with you. I think something that we like to do at the show is to learn around the founders of these amazing companies and, use that as an inspiration. So maybe you can tell me how you landed into the Amazon space and what made you basically found Riverbend. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I am one of those mommies. You know how there's all these mommies out there who use Amazon as a side hustle because they
Yeah.
want to be home with their kids?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
that is me. So many years ago, I was working as a consultant. I was freelancing, working out of my house, and my
Yeah.
older kid was diagnosed with autism and a bunch of other stuff. And
Okay.
he was struggling in school. We couldn't figure out what to do. We decided to homeschool him. But when you homeschool and you're doing a bunch of therapy, it's super expensive. So I couldn't just quit working because our
Hmm.
expenses just went through the roof. My
Yeah.
husband's working full time. So I started doing an FBA on the side back in the day where you're like doing all retail arbitrage,
Wow.
right? And so I would go at night. My husband would work during the day. He'd be home at night with the kids. I'm outsourcing products. On the weekend, as a family, we pack and ship. And that is
Wow.
how we
That's hustle.
afforded therapy for my kid, who now is a junior in college and doing just
Wow.
great. So it was so worth it. And that was my introduction to the Amazon world. So it also just goes to know, you never know where your side hustle is going to take
Hmm.
you.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing story. First of all, I want to congratulate you for what you have achieved. So nice story for sure. And I think, yeah, when it comes to, the Amazon space, I feel most of us, the majority, land on the space because we want to do something on the side. We are struggling and we want to create another income. But then the beauty of the Amazon space is like, it's not just about selling, it's about also helping our sellers, creating a service solution to, support our businesses grow. And that's what you did with Riverbend. So maybe tell us a little bit about why you decide to do like everything that is the most difficult thing on Amazon, like dealing with account suspension, agents. I mean, that's like the worst part of Amazon, and it's so stressful. Even myself, when I wake up and I see those mails from my client, I still get like panic. So tell us what made you actually focus on this area, which is at the same time so important to support Amazon sellers. Keep going. Yeah.
And you're right, it is the part of Amazon no one wants to deal with.
Yeah.
You have to really be able to handle stress and not internalize it, stay
Mm,
calm for the client. We are like half service provider and half therapist. That, hey, we're going to get through
that's
this
good.
together, y'all.
Yeah.
Um, so really, it's because my background prior to doing anything in Amazon was consulting work. I wrote the
Ah,
equivalent of plans of
okay.
action back then. I
I
helped
see.
people write business plans, did a
Okay.
lot of old school work in that area. So then when you start meeting people out at events, you start, they start saying, I've got this problem. And this
Mhm.
was back before there were agencies like us helping out. And one of the people that I met along the way that I got reinstated was a guy named Joe Zalta, and he was panicked because his account
Mm,
was down. He had used another service provider who hadn't gotten him reinstated. He was referred to
wow,
me. I got him reinstated pretty fast. And then a
that's
few weeks later, he called me and said, we should really like do something with this
hmm.
because you're all about service and processes, and I'm all about marketing and sales. And he has a really strong retail background.
Yeah,
So he said,
yeah.
we should join forces. So we did. And he is now my business partner of 5.5 years.
Wow, what a journey. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's the beauty of the space. Sometimes by having to deal yourself with the issues, that's when you discover that there's actually need in the market to offer the service. I'm happy to see that you guys did that with Riverbend. Now, let's start jumping to what everybody's looking for to get out of this episode, which is, the knowledge around, how we navigate these issues. And I think, first of all, maybe we can start with a very simple question like, what are the latest things you have seen in the space? Maybe what are the most common suspensions you have seen? And then we can use that as a kickstart to go further. Yeah.
So the number one question I have for sellers right now is, what is your account health rating? So
Mm-hmm.
we all saw for many years, Amazon created that new scorecard that's on the
Yeah.
middle of the account health page. And it
Yeah.
had that bar that was the red. It was not really
Yeah.
red, though. It's like pink.
I
The,
know. Mm-hmm.
the red, yellow, and green. And it would say
Mm-hmm.
healthy or not healthy. And
Yeah.
it said beta. And it was in
Mm.
beta for long enough for people to
I
like get
know.
married, fall in love, have children,
Crazy.
get pets, go on
Mm-hmm.
vacations. I mean, it was in beta for years.
Yeah.
So last fall, they suddenly took it out of beta. And by now, almost everyone has been rolled out an account health rating, which is a score from 0 to 1,000. The
Mm-hmm.
crazy thing about this scale is 0 to 200 is bad,
I
and
know. I know.
200 to 1,000 is okay. I mean,
Like
who comes up
everybody.
with this?
Yeah. Like everybody's okay, pretty much. Yeah.
But yeah, you would think though it would be somewhere like in the middle, like 500
Mm-hmm.
and down is not good, and 500 and up is great. But no, it's 200. That 200 to 1,000 is based on volume. So a lot of that is about
Um.
how much you do in sales. That is a great improvement, because in the past Amazon would do a lot of ASIN suspension based on whole numbers instead
Yeah.
of based on, gosh, this is a super high volume product. Obviously you're going to have some imperfect orders and cranky buyers, right? and
Mm-hmm.
and you don't take down the ASIN for that. So that is a positive. The negative is, I think a lot of people don't really understand this score, and Amazon hasn't done a great job of explaining. So I can tell you what we have seen within your account when you click on each of those areas under the score. So it has like IP violations, it has like used, sold as new, condition stuff, inauthentic. When you
Mm-hmm.
click on those, it will actually tell you how much impact that violation has on your account.
Yeah.
So if something says critical,
Yeah.
do not leave it even
I know.
for a day. We had an account last week. This really shocked me.
Mm.
And as y'all can imagine, we see a lot of things.
Yeah,
So
I
it
can
takes a
imagine
lot to
every
shock
single
me.
day. Yeah.
um, we had an account last week. This I would consider fairly high volume account
Okay.
was taken down by 2 critical violations. Uh,
Wow.
and they have 2,100 SKUs in their catalog.
Wow.
So to be taken down by 2
That's crazy.
ASINs that were critical violations is shocking to me. They were both intellectual property. Um, a super important thing for everyone to know is that in the past, the suspected intellectual property, okay, let's admit it, we all ignored them and blew them off, right? Because
Yeah, I
nothing
know.
ever happened. And
Yeah, yeah.
unless you had a bunch of that inventory sitting and you needed to sell it, you would just be like, forget
Yeah.
about it.
Forget about
Um,
it.
those count against you now. And so each of these violations that's in that scorecard kind of adds up, and it subtracts from your score. And if you
Mm-hmm.
are under 200, they say, you've got to work with us and fix this, or we're going to suspend your account. Um,
Okay.
Now, that sounds kind of friendly ish, but there's still the enforcement. The enforcement is still really uneven. So
Okay.
sometimes you get that warning and then all of a sudden you're suspended. Like they
Yeah,
didn't
they don't
really
give you
give you
time.
time.
Yeah, yeah. I
And then
see.
other times it drags on. We've had people come in who have hundreds of violations that we don't even understand how they were still live.
Yeah.
And in their cases, we've appealed ASIN after ASIN after ASIN, and it's dragged out for months. And as long as we keep working on it, they haven't been taken down, which to me, I mean, if I were the investigator, I would have taken them
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, I know. You see, you see the whole picture. It's always the case on Amazon. I mean, there's always unfair things that you see. Sometimes your competitor doing that. If you do, you get suspended, vice versa. And it is what it is, right? It's difficult sometimes to make a playing ground for everybody. But yeah, I have seen the same from our clients as well. Now, with this feature, now that you mentioned, something interesting that I also saw is that they added this call action. You can call somebody, right? So basically, try to solve this issue. So, just to add some, explanation to everybody listening here, how have you found actually this being useful? Because I have some clients that they have used this, and they get an answer on one call, they get another answer on another call, they get so it's not really proper support as they're picturing it. So, what have you seen as well?
So, y'all, what he's referring to is there's a button in the top right and it says call us and it's account
Yeah,
health
that's
services.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And because they are tangentially part of seller performance, so they're not the actual seller performance investigators, but they
Okay.
are people who help with account health issues. And so you think, oh, well, cool, they're on that team. They know
Yeah, yeah.
stuff. They can help
Hmm.
me. It's a lot
I
it's a
know.
lot like seller support. So seller support, tell me if I'm wrong. 20% of the guys handling cases like know what they're doing. And then
Hmm.
20% of them give you information that will actually get your account taken down.
Yeah,
And the
wrong
remaining
advice.
right,
Yeah,
bad advice. And then the remaining 60%, it's just like a loop and nothing ever happens and you never get anywhere, right? I mean, in that kind of ballpark how things
yeah.
are.
I agree with you. I agree.
So
Yeah.
account health, same thing. So 20% of them, brilliant, know what they're doing, highly trained, super skilled, will give you feedback that can help you reinstate your ACE and get your account back up. 20% of them will give you advice that will actually get you blocked forever.
Hmm.
And then the remainder, they're just sending you in on a merry chase.
In a
They
loop.
give you irrelevant information. They tell you, oh, really, what we want you to address is thing B. And that actually isn't the thing at all. We've had clients call account health who have told us advice that they were given that, I mean, seriously, you could be blocked to where it would be
Mm.
really hard for us to get you back.
Yeah, that's why I ask you this question, and I feel this is a good point to provide value to our listeners, because sometimes I get asked that question from my clients, like, yeah, I can get that solved by giving them a call, and from my experience and what my clients are telling me, they're getting the wrong advice, they're doing the wrong action. Sometimes the solution is even worse to the reason they were taken down in the first place. And that's why I always advise in the first place, just go directly with an expert like Real Brand, right? And wasting your time on these calls and case studies. I feel like most of the time, if you're gonna play with the percentage we just described, most of the time you're gonna get the wrong answer.
Well, and the very worst thing that we've seen many times is when people are stuck in a verification loop or some
Hmm.
or a linked accounts problem where your account has been linked to a bad guy's account or a past account you had that was closed or whatever. And in those cases, frequently the people that you call on that line will tell you to just open a new account.
That's crazy, crazy
And
advice.
so that will not only get the new account blocked, it'll get this account blocked and any other account blocked. And there will be a note on there saying you were trying to circumvent again after you were warned. And circumvention is so Amazon is a land of second chances. They
Hmm.
love to give second, even third, fourth, fifth chances. If you're
Hmm.
honest, if you're an honest broker, if you're really trying to fix problems, even if you make mistakes, screw up, bad products, you can live with, you can get through that. You cannot get through lying to them and getting caught, and you cannot get through circumventing their rules. So they're literally telling you like the one thing you should never do, and to do it. It scares me to death. And then we
I
have to
know.
talk our clients out of it, right? We
I
have to be
know.
like, no, no, no.
I know it's concerning, and I think that's why it's good that we touch this point. But because just to bring this to a table, so we can close this topic, is like the same. Some clients are getting ASINs taken down, and the advice they're getting, they're given is that create another product with the same information, everything, a new ASIN and everything. Is you're replicating the same issue again over and over. It's like, oh my god! But anyway, it is what it is, right? Now, let's jump into another question that I get quite often, and this more like a prevention questions. Like people want to know what are the things like the most common mistakes people must be doing right now to get suspended and how they can avoid them. So maybe you can give us some insights around that as well.
Absolutely. So there is a suspension type that has come back from the dead, and it
Hmm.
relates exactly to this question.
Okay.
So way back when I started doing appeals, like 8, 9, 10 years ago, most of them were for inauthentic. And that meant that a buyer complained that what they received was not an authentic product. It didn't match
Hmm.
the detail page for some reason, whatever. It's not
Hmm.
authentic. And then that kind of went away. And for a long time now, like 2 years, we rarely see an inauthentic suspension, sometimes ASINs, but it is back in full force. And it's for the same reason as always. People are listing products that the packaging doesn't match.
Mm.
So
Okay.
either they've changed, if they're private label, they
Yeah.
updated their packaging, but they still have stuff in the warehouse and they didn't create two
I
SKUs,
see.
or they are sourcing product, whether it's RA or from wholesale or
Hmm.
whatever, and it's different packaging. That freaks customers out. And especially in anything consumable, like a supplement, a food product, anything you put on your body, people don't like that. So that's a really big one, is packaging not matching. And I know a lot of your people are private label.
Yeah.
I tell you, y'all, there is magic in using multiple FN SKUs.
I see.
So if you have a new run of your product and you're updating the packaging and you're shipping stuff in because your plan is, well, as soon as, we'll sell out of the old SKU and they'll
Yeah,
start
the old
selling the new
version.
SKU.
Yeah.
You don't want that mixed up in the same bin. You
Being.
need it in separate bins. So you get down to 100 units or whatever of your product, you suck those puppies out of the warehouse, and then you turn on the new FN SKU of the inventory that's there, which
I see.
relates to another huge mistake people make, um, which is expiration. So,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why. It's usually not your fault. It's usually Amazon's fault.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yes, but you can't tell them that.
Yeah, they're
So
perfect.
Amazon FBA warehouses are supposed to be FIFO, first in, first out. First item in the warehouse is supposed to be the first unit sold. Oh, that's a lie. We all know it's a lie. It doesn't work that way. That would be great. The bigger issue is Amazon accepts returns of things they're not supposed to, and they do poor returns grading, meaning
Mm.
something comes back, they should not put it back in inventory, and they do, such as coffee makers with moldy coffee, hair appliances with hair in them. And how about the expired vitamins that someone bought, never used, returned a year later? Or how about the vitamins that fell on the floor in the warehouse, went under a shelf and got found, and they throw it back in the bin, right? These are all things that happen, and then it's expired. So let's
Mhm.
go back to that FNSKU idea. If you have any product that could be gross and disgusting and freak people out, like a coffee maker or a hair appliance,
Yeah.
things that you shutter, or anything that expires, you need to send in batches to the warehouse on different FN SKUs. And
Mhm.
when you, at some point, you're going to say, we're down to this many units. How many are the same returned unit getting thrown back into sellable? We all
Mm.
know that happens, right?
Yeah.
So you get it down to a certain number of units. There's a few gross ones in there because you keep getting the same complaint. And then you turn that FNSKU off. You recall or destroy that inventory. You turn the new one on. So you've already got that new inventory in the warehouse. You're not missing out on sales. You're
Mhm.
just rotating your
I see.
inventory. And if you do that, they can never sell expired inventory, because those units they just found from 2 years ago, you turned that FNSKU off.
I
And
see.
expired inventory is bad for your brand because you get nasty comments, you get nasty
Mm.
reviews, nasty store feedback. You get threats from Amazon. They almost consider it to be like fraud when you're selling expired units. There's all kinds of bad things that happen. And if you're a manufacturer of those things, private label manufacturer, the FDA can get notified if it's a
Mm.
repetitive issue. So the rotating FNSKU is like my favorite ever strategy, and it solves
Wow.
so many of these annoying FBA issues.
Very good strategy. Yeah, I've never heard of that. So yeah, very good. I'm gonna actually start implementing that myself as well. And now, going back to the first type of suspension, just to ask you another extra question here. I know you mentioned that, let's say we bring a updated version of the product, like better packaging, a small modification. Do we need to ask for permission to Amazon about this? Because I know there are some comments also going around that if you change somehow the product, it should be considered a new async altogether. So could you actually get suspended for that if you change the product too much, like you made the packaging too different, or you add like an extra pen or an accessory and you call it the same async? Because I have gotten that question as well. Yeah.
This is a really tough one, and a lot of it is about your risk tolerance. Now, I'll tell you, I have not seen an account suspended
Okay.
for changing this information. I have seen ASINs go down for it. So I'll tell you what the rule is, and then I'll tell you what reality is that most people actually do.
Yeah.
So the rule is if you completely change the branding on
Yeah.
something, like it was, so I'm looking at your goldfish. It was like goldfish fins, and then you changed it to goldfish shark fins. Well, obviously
Yeah.
that's a completely different brand, right? So if you do that, you are supposed to completely change the ASIN. Now, what most people do, because it's really not realistic. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. If it's the same fundamental product,
Yeah.
it actually hurts Amazon as well as the brand to
Mm-hmm.
give up all of your reviews and your BSR and everything else. What most people do is slow walk the changes. So they will gradually change the listing detail page over time. Now, actually getting the brand name changed is really tough, and sometimes that you need some extra help for that. So we've actually done appeals to certain people at Amazon and said, here's why we need to change it. Please don't penalize us. You'll see that the UPC's matched, yada,
Mm-hmm.
yada. So that can be rough. But as far as like packaging, usually if you slow walk those changes, Amazon doesn't notice or care, as long as you're not doing something they would consider truly manipulative.
I see. Very good. Very good.
It's not within
Now,
policy though, but I'm
no,
just
no,
telling you that's my
it's a gray
caveat.
area. Yeah, it's a gray area. I know. Like a lot of
Yeah.
things with Amazon, it's all in the gray area. Is you need to see how much risk you want to tolerate and
Hmm.
understand that is risk involved. Now, to start concluding, I think another thing that I want to bring to the table is like how people react when they get a suspension or an ASIN taken down, because I see a lot of mistakes when it comes to this. Like people start replying back with emotional messages, so they get mad, or they start sending screenshot that doesn't even relate to the issue. They don't really build a plan of action. And I think I want to use this opportunity because I know you guys are expert at this. Like, what can be some high level like strategy when it comes when you get a suspension or an ASIN taking down or some issue with your account? Like, how you should react? Like, do you advise like um I mean, what is typical plan of action you would advise, or how quickly you should reply, and all of that, so we can give some tactical advice if possible. Yeah.
So the first thing is to stop and do nothing.
Okay.
Because if you just immediately respond, it will not be the right answer. I promise it
Mm,
won't. Also, you're either mad or scared or freaked
I see.
out. And so that emotional response you're going to
It's
give,
bad. Yeah.
it your first shot is already blown, and it takes longer and longer for you to get responses as the things go on. So don't do that. Number two is don't ask Amazon questions.
I know. I have
So,
seen that.
so, so I see, I know you're laughing because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that has been the
Yeah.
bane of my existence.
Yeah.
Because we have clients who come to us that all their responses to Amazon have been, where are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Where are you
They want the
getting this
answer.
data?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
do you think this happened? No, Amazon expects you to know how your business is running, including all of these things that you really can't see.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to figure it out. So Don't respond with questions because they'll just roll their eyes and send you back you need a new plan of action. Blah, 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 blah. Number 3 is you need to do a data dive in your account.
Okay.
And there's so much there. I know you can't see what Amazon sees, but there's still voice of the customer, seller feedback. There's the reviews for your products if you sell products. There's even the reviews for products that aren't yours that you can look through and see if there's
Yeah.
some kind of a warning sign. There's your returns. There's comments with returns. There's return rates for certain things that might be outsized. There's a lot of data to go through to really parse and figure out the issue. Because I'll tell you what you don't want to do. You don't want to give Amazon a plan of action based on your feelings, not on data, and get reinstated and then have them take down the same ASIN or account again for the same thing. Because you can come back from that. I'm not saying you can't. You can come back from that for anything except reviews abuse and platform manipulation. Those are 2 strikes, you're out. Anything else that's not like fraud, you can come back, but they will even say, we looked back and saw you didn't implement your plan of action or something along those lines. And it takes a lot longer. So if the first time it took you a week to get reinstated, the second time it'll take you a month.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to really look at the data. You have to believe the data, which means, okay, I know there are bad buyers and there are mean people and all these things, but you have to go in and admit some stuff, because most of the time it's not a black hat that made this happen to you. 5% of the time, maybe. The rest of the time, you screwed up. You could have done better.
Yeah.
There are even things like that ASIN or the FNSKU rotation we were talking about earlier. You're not a bad seller if you don't do that.
No.
But are you a better seller if you do it? Yes, if you're selling a consumable.
Yeah.
So there are things like that where you don't have to admit you were evil or something.
Yeah,
you just have to say, this is how we're doing it better. So you have to be proactive, apologetic in your stance.
Don't lie. That's a good thing. Sometimes they lie. You make things up to make Amazon happy. They can find that. So that's a big one as well.
Yeah, you really. I mean, there is something in there. There is a way to find fault, and there's a way to admit it without saying, "I deserve this."
Yeah, I'm a bad person.
You don't have to do that. You just have to say that we could have done this part so much better, and this is how we're going to do it better in the future. Keep it short, to the point. Use bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually go do the stuff you tell them you're going to do.
Important.
Because really about 2/3 of the time, a seller either did something wrong or they could have avoided what happened, right? 1/3 of the time, there's bad enforcement, black hat, there's all kinds of stuff that happens. But 2/3 of the time, seller could have done better. Why wouldn't you want to do better? And so my final thought on this is, when you write this plan of action, think about your bottom line, because probably the stuff that made your ASIN get suspended is costing you money because you have a high returns rate. Anything that gets sent back, you are eating the fees. You're eating the pick and pack. And the shipping fees and everything else when you ship that inventory, and you're eating all of that. You have just a couple of ASINs with high return rates. Your profitability is 0. So don't think of this only as like a punishment. Think of it as, you know what? I need to be making more money, and this is keeping me from making money. Try and flip it on its head of an opportunity to improve. I know that sounds like something I would say to my 15-year-old son, and it is. This is a learning experience, honey. That bad grade on that essay. But it's true. Everything is an opportunity to do better.
That's amazing advice. Yeah, I think we're gonna use that to close it here. I mean, I appreciate all the advice and all the tactics you share with us today. I think this is a topic that people get very emotional, and that's why sometimes we do these mistakes. But at the end of the day, if you stay calm and where you did a mistake, and you reach out to real events so they can help you with all the plan of action, everything, I'm pretty sure you're gonna get running back in no time. So, and actually I want to use this opportunity now, so if you can tell us more about how people can find you and what is your contact information, so when those bad days happens, they can come to you crying, and I know you're gonna take care of them and make sure everything is fixed.
Absolutely. So you can find us at riverbendconsulting.com. And what's exciting about our website, you can fill out a form, or we
Mhm.
have a phone number and we answer the phone and we talk to people, which these
Awesome.
days that's not super
Difficult.
common. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and we have consultative people who answer the phone. So if you have a problem, we'll talk it through with you. And if we're not the right service provider, we have a lot of great people that we can refer you to for other issues if they're not in our wheelhouse. Also, if you head on over to LinkedIn and put in Lesley Hensell, I post content every week that's about Amazon, keeping you up to date on the latest and greatest over there.
Awesome. That's amazing. So I'm gonna make sure to put everything down in the description. In the meantime, I want to thank you. I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to have you in the next one. Yeah. Thank
Hey,
you.
thanks so much.
Bye bye. See ya.